Welcome to Camp Unwrapped. Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Rich. I'm quite tired. I'm not going to lie. I'm working hard with my university work, um, but at the expense of quite a lot of sleep. How have you been?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. Getting along, working semi-hard and planning to get back on the golf course very, very soon. How are you, Andy?
I'm well, thank you, Rich. Not too bad. Just enjoying the sun down in Norfolk.
Good, good. Still working hard?
Yeah, working. Yeah, tutoring every now and then during the week, which keeps me busy.
Good, good. Well, it's lovely to see you as ever. We've decided that today we were going to talk about what happens between when a member of staff is accepted for a job and how they feel through that process until the first day of the camp when the children arrive on the Sunday at XUK. So start with Tom. Do you remember when you got your email accepting you for a job?
I do, yeah. I was just at home with my dad, and I remember being really shocked at it. I think I've mentioned in a previous episode when I was at the interview, everyone there seemed to be a fully trained teacher or an excellent sports coach, and I just thought I hadn't really got in. So yeah, it was a lovely surprise to get. But then I remember it was quite a daunting feeling as well because I live in quite a rural area where everything in my life up until that point had been in the same couple of towns and villages. I'd had the same people in my school class since the age of 3 until about 18. And suddenly I was faced with the prospect of going and living away for a few weeks somewhere new with people I didn't know. So I remember the initial excitement and then quite a lot of nervousness in the months leading up to it.
Yeah, I can imagine that situation must be very difficult, and we'll get to the in between parts. But it's funny looking at it now, a few years later, that you're an integral part of the XUK life, as it were.
Yeah, I remember similar to Tom, I was just at home and I was waiting for the email, quite nervous of whether to find out if you've made the cut or not. And I think it's probably the same with most jobs that you'll come across, but I think camp especially because, as Tom said, you're being thrown into this new environment with so many new people. The only thing I can really compare it to is sort of starting university. And Tom, I just got a question for you because, for me and for many other members of staff, they will already have been to university. How was it coming from, your background and not having previously moved away to university? How was it adjusting to life at camp?
Yeah, I mean, it was terrifying. I'm not going to lie. I remember in my first year, there were 3 of us who hadn't been to uni, but the other 2 had been to like multiple schools growing up and grew up in bigger areas than where I was from. So it wasn't something I'd ever experienced before. And you two may remember in first year, I didn't really speak. I was quite reserved and in my shell. I like to still be involved with the goings on and the social side of things, but wouldn't put myself forward to start a conversation. Whereas when I came back in second year, I was a little bit more confident.
Tom, what were you doing in between getting the job and coming to camp? Were you still at school?
I was, yeah, that was one of the strange things that the point I got my email saying, you've got this job where you need to come and be responsible for these children and run activities. I was also in a position where I had to ask permission to go to the toilet half the time. So it was quite a big step up. And then I also remember my job contract was conditional on the grounds that I qualified as a lifeguard. But there's nowhere near where I live that had these courses available. So I spent the last few weekends traveling back and forth to a city nearby, training early starts to drive to get to the swimming pool in order to get the job. So yeah, it kind of helped maybe take my mind off things because I was in school, I had all my final exams coming up and had to train as a lifeguard. So yeah, I was pretty full on until camp started. And as you both know, it's not much respite when you get there either.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andy, were you at university for those couple of months?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was just finishing my second year at university. Yeah. So like Tom, it was very full on, but camp was always something I was looking forward to. So hearing back from camp and getting that offer of employment was just enlightened that feeling of looking forward to the summer.
And then there would have been a period of weeks, if not months, between getting that email saying you've got a job and from starting. Do you remember any of the emails you were sent or any of the preparation that you had to do for camp beforehand? Or is that like a distant memory now?
I remember getting the email with the kit list on it and all the recommended clothing or items that we bring, and really sticking to that religiously, because prior to coming to XUK, I'll be honest, I didn't even know there was a holiday camp industry in this country. Everyone's heard of Camp America, but that was it really, if you'd have asked me about holiday camps. So I was really dependent on any emails we got with the policies and procedures or what we needed to bring when we needed to arrive. I really took like gospel, really, just any advice I could get.
That's good.
Yeah.
You're the same for you?
Yeah. I remember the kit lists being sent through, but I remember one thing being really helpful was the Facebook page, because at the start, the Facebook page is set up and it allows us to contact people, staff members who are new and arriving, but also staff members who are older and more experienced. And I just remember them sending through advice and their recommended kit lists. And I remember that being hugely influential and helpful for myself. I'm not sure about you, Tom, but it enabled me to prepare a lot more for diving into camp, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw personally a lot of people asking questions that maybe I wanted to ask, but didn't have the confidence to put there. So it's helpful just being in one big group all together, because most of your questions get answered one way or another.
So then we come to the day or the Friday when you started the camp. How did you get there? Do you remember? You remember your transport there?
Yeah, so I drove across with my dad, who is from Norfolk, where the camp used to be, or he's from East Anglia. So he knew the drive pretty well, and he went to see some family. And I knew the area a little bit from a couple of trips that I've been on, which I actually found quite reassuring as we got closer to camp, recognizing some of the places. Just a little bit of familiarity before doing something completely unknown. But yeah, I remember being very nervous on that journey, not really knowing what to expect.
Yeah, and it was the same for me as well. I live just around the corner from the old site from Eccles. And even though I wasn't changing my scenery that much, I knew the area really well. But being thrown into camp, I've known the school for years, but now it's been transformed into this camp environment. It's totally different, and I still had the nerves that I had when I went away to university.
So then you come into the main entrance of the school, and you're ushered into, it was the junior common room for our training. And to set the scene, there would have been 50 to 60 chairs set out in front of a PowerPoint presentation. I would have been at the door welcoming you with a couple of other people, and you're in there. How are you feeling there and then? Or do you remember any particular people that you first chatted to? Maybe Andy first.
Yeah, well, it sticks out quite clearly for me. The first person I remember seeing, or I can imagine me seeing, was TP, was Tall Paul. And I think that was his first year as well. So he was probably just as nervous as I was. But I just remember seeing him so vividly. And then obviously yourself, Rich, and also Matt Hayward stuck out for me. I remember speaking to him. But I do remember, everyone was nervous, and you do get the sense that, people are very shy. But that, once you're sat down, everyone's in the same position, you start explaining how things are going to go forward, your nerves are immediately put at ease, because you know you're all in the same boat and people are here to help you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the same. I recognised a couple of people from my interview day who I was able to talk to just while we were waiting for other people to arrive. And then once we were in the interview room, for me, I was sat next to Matt. I remember just talking to him straight away about sport. And I think it's a real testament to camp in that I'd say we've pretty much spoken every day since then, at camp or through messaging each other when we're not at camp. We've been on a couple of trips away, and it all started like that friendship on that day. So yeah, it's quite a nice thing to look back on, but at the time had no idea it would take off like that.
Yeah, that's so lovely to hear that the first person you sat next to is now a close friend, and looking at the people that you both saw first. Matt Hayward, lovely guy, really personable, really caring, likes to look after people. And tall Paul, well, you couldn't miss him. He's about 7'5", so he would be the first person that we all see. So then we all sit down and some of the serious stuff begins, and I would have done an introduction, and we would have done a safeguarding training. I believe that year Pete ran the safeguarding training. Did you find there was a lot of information? Did you find there was too much? How did you take much of it in?
For me, it was quite a lot of information, but once you get running and once you get going with the actual setting up of camp and understanding and visualizing how the camp's going to run, for me that really helped to solidify exactly everything that you were saying in the training.
And Andy, was there anything particular in the training that you remember learning or seeing that sticks out?
I think the way you ask questions, Rich, really sticks out to me. And if you're hungry, you do really well with answering the questions, because you're launching these starbursts, I think they are, throwing them around the room. And to be honest, that really, sets the scene. It's quite a relaxed atmosphere.
Yeah, for me personally, I kind of saw the training as being in two parts. So the first part would be the safeguarding side of things, which, it has to be done. And I'd like to think the most important part of any role working with children. I've done a lot of coaching, and I'm training to be a teacher now, so it's become almost second nature, that sort of training, and you understand how those courses work. But then the other part of the training was learning about camp and getting to know the site. And I remember finding that quite overwhelming almost, trying to remember the different names of all the buildings and areas, which at the time, because you hadn't been to any of them, felt like an impossible task. But then once you've been on a walk around, and after a couple of days there, you just get to know what each area is called and what's there, and it becomes second nature to you.
Absolutely. And then we finish on the Friday night by, after a big PowerPoint presentation and a huge amount of information, by going out with a whole staff team, there's about 50 of us, to the local pub. Do you remember that trip?
I do. I think it was quite an effective way as well, in that all of the older staff, the returning staff, that was their opportunity to have a real catch up with one another. And I felt, for me as a new member of staff, I could see how close everyone was, which kind of settled your nerves a little bit going into the camp, because you'd seen the effect it had on other people and their relationships. So it was quite a nice evening just to see and think, okay, this is how camp works, this is how it's going to go, and it's all going to be okay.
Yeah, that's a good point you made, Tom, that you can really see the relationships of the older staff, of the staff that have been there 2 or 3 years maybe. And I would also say that that's the same when the coach arrives, bringing the staff from London. So I know for me, and I think for you as well, Tom, we possibly arrived before the coach did, bringing yourself, Rich, bringing everyone else with them. And when everyone got off the coach, it was that feeling, and you could see clearly that, the staff members missed each other and knew each other really well, just from the way they were hugging, and everyone was sort of catching up, and immediately it was that sort of social environment, and that sticks out as a real memory. It's like, these are the sorts of relationships that I'm going to form at camp. This is the kind of environment that I'm now in.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. And I think to add to that, what is more lovely than that particular point is that the older staff, who are still already very close friends, are very open and want the new staff to enter that friendship and become a bigger group. There's no cliques, as it were.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone's open. Everyone's willing to talk to other people and to make them feel at ease. You know, if they're particularly nervous, everyone's open and lovely to speak to.
So we come back from the pub. You have your first night sleeping, which may or may not be in the bed that you're allocated for the rest of the week, and then we wake up, and the next day, up till the evening, is activity training and setup. So did you learn anything on the activity training, and did that really help you for camp, set you up?
I'd say so, yeah. There's some games that we got taught by the activity manager at the start of all of the years I've done at camp that I've used in lessons when I've been teaching in school, or at coaching sessions if I've been doing sport outside of camp. So you pick up some really valuable activities and games there. And then I normally associate those days with the setup of camp, because we have to turn it from a normal school that's been teaching British children and national curriculum all year into a holiday camp where learners can come and have all these different activities. And it doesn't just happen like with the click of your fingers. It's quite hard work over a couple of days. I seem to recall a lot of balancing, maybe on top of a car or hanging out of a car as it's packed with resources and driven about camp. I know I used my car this year to help drive things from the containers to where they needed to go, and some of the powder paint exploded. So the back of my car is quite fluorescently coloured at the moment, and I think it's going to stay that way. But yeah, it's quite a nice reminder of just all the hectic goings on that happens before the children arrive.
And then as a Saturday draws to a close, we have dinner, and then the culmination of months of work is brought out, and you are now given what kids you're looking after and exactly what is happening tomorrow on the Sunday, how children are arriving and where you're going. Are you on site? Are you on an airport or transfer run? Were you both on site, or did you get out and do transfers on Sunday?
On our first year, I was on a transport an airport run, I remember. And I remember being very, very nervous because I'd never done anything like this before. And you had lots of things to bear in mind. You had other members of staff that you needed to direct. You needed to know everything inside and out. So it was quite a task, but I loved it. And that again was just testament to all the challenges that you face and the things you would never really have thought you would be exposed to at camp that you have now need to deal with.
And Andy, did you feel that the information that you were given on Saturday night trained you well enough so you were confident in what you were doing on the Sunday?
It gives you all of the information that you need. However, there's always cases, you may forget a piece of information. You may have thought of a question in the night that you needed answering, but perhaps it needed to wait till the morning. So that there are always questions that you're going to have. But it did set you up really well for going ahead with what you needed to do.
Fab. And Tom, what about yourself? With that information thrown at you on Saturday night, how did you feel?
I loved the Saturday night, the night just before the first children arrive. I feel like we're like an adult version of a child before Christmas, because the summer's about to kick off from that point, and that's where all the fun begins. And there is a real excitement you can tell when people find out what they're doing, who's in their dorm, and the first interactions they're going to have with the children. I've been on site for all 3 years. I've done camp on the opening weekend. But yeah, like I say, you get that information and straight away you're you know, comparing what you've got with other people. You're talking about the day that's to come, and there's a real feel-good feeling about that night in particular.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I would say that everything that has been planned, everything that you've been thinking about, it all comes to reality then. So that's a really exciting point, I think, just before camp. Yeah, I would agree.
And the reality of the dream that the office have had since the October previously, and all the interviews, all the preparation, all the equipment, all the staff coming together, the schools, the food, the cleaning, and the children, all comes together. And on that Sunday, then we can look at ourselves and say, wow, we have brought this together, and now we need to make it work. We need to make the children happy. We need to make sure they're safe. And we need to have the best summer that we've ever had, which invariably we do every single year. So that brings us nicely to the end of our conversation, which is really interesting. It's lovely to hear about your emotions and thoughts in between in the periods that I don't necessarily see you. So Tom, you're going to finish off. You had a question for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull a random question out of the multitude I have in front of me, and we're gonna go for, how many countries are there in the continent of Africa?
23.
23 for Rich. Andy, what are you thinking?
I think a little bit lower. I think there's 19.
Okay, so the answer you were looking for was 54 countries. So way off the mark, but I'll let you off because it's not like anyone studied geography here.
Smashing. Well, that's a great question. Andy, Tom, lovely chatting with you again. Everyone, stay alert and keep an eye out for more Camp Unwraps. Great seeing you. See you soon.